Mira and Peter. You're listening to the Mind Takeaway podcast, where we talk about all things mind-related and embrace what it is to be human in an age of technology, digitalization, and information overload. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and share with your friends. Hi, and welcome to the Mind Takeaway podcast. Our guest today is Satyen Raja, founder and CEO of the multi-million-dollar transformational academy, Warrior Sage. Satyen has impacted over 100,000 students from over 50 countries around the world. After 35 years of rigorous study and practice in both creating enlightened business growth and developing higher consciousness, Satyen works privately with CEOs, high-impact individuals, executive teams who have mastered accomplishment in the financial and public world, but now want a deeper balance, illumination, and self-realized equilibrium that he calls peak existence. Satyen combines the power of the warrior and the wisdom of the sage to lead leaders worldwide into their highest knowledge, self-expression, and impact. Enjoy listening.
Okay, so welcome everyone. We are with Satyen Raja, so welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Welcome,
Thanks for having
Satyen.
me. Thank you, Mira, Peter.
So another name for you could say you're called the Warrior Sage, right?
Well, I think the warrior sage is the archetype within us all. These are energy centers and empowerments. It's the name of our organization, but for me, it's when we are fully activated in our core, when we're aligned around our vision, purpose, and mission that's coming from our soul, from our heart, our deepest essence, and then we bring it forth into life. To me, that's the warrior, the actualization of our dharma, what we're meant to be here for. And to bring it into life in reality. And the sage refers to the wisdom within us already, that part that is connected to the wisdom of the earth, wisdom of the universe, wisdom of the cosmos. So I believe these particular energies are already within us. Sometimes they just need to be uncovered and evoked and supported.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. So can you just explain to the people listening, with that said about wisdom, how do you work with people? What lights you up? What's your ideal client? Because I know from LinkedIn, for example, you say you work with CEOs, you're like a guide. I love the fact that you said you've been an entrepreneur for your whole life. And crucially as well, you love your family. You're a family man at the core, right?
Yes. Well, thank you. So my main focus and intention is to really help high impact entrepreneurs, business leaders, consciousness, to be able to awaken their consciousness, to align themselves to their soul and mind unity. And so that they have the capacity to be totally free in their being, to manifest and fulfill whatever intentions they have. And so specifically, I work with entrepreneurs and CEOs and business leaders who are here to make a bigger impact on this planet in a positive way. And I believe that it's, big business entrepreneurs, we're the ones that are destroying the world. The consciousness and the greed and the me-centric state of being, eventually, yes, we can have wins and successes and feel good about all those things. But if it's doing harm to the greater whole, then eventually those successes are hollow. They mean nothing. They're detrimental to our soul and life itself. And so I feel, rather than discarding our desire and our natural urge to exchange energies and capitalism, if you will, my intention is to help enlighten capitalism, to have our leaders awaken to their, if you will, symbiotic relationship to the whole. And when we can think about that, we can look at the stats, we can hear and listen to the fact that we're interconnected, and we can hear teachers and spiritual teachings that allude to this. It's a whole other thing when you have an awakening experience and you awaken to your own symbiotic nature. And that changes the whole game inside, because then once you know tacitly viscerally that I am part of all of this, my team and everything, then what happens is the decisions that we create in our businesses are aligned from this Gaia-centric consciousness rather than me-centric consciousness. And that's the big evolution, I believe, that we're here for right now. And it's a must. It's needed right now, actually.
Yeah, it's definitely needed right now, that's for sure. I mean, we interviewed someone quite recently, or it was me, wasn't it? And the guy was saying that, you know, the problem with things right now, technology, it's actually, you know, it's not technology, it's the humans at the core. If they're thinking about themselves or they're thinking about shareholder value, right? It's not going to be sustainable. That old model, it's flawed, it's gone. Right now, exactly what you were saying, we need to think about everyone. And good leadership is realizing that you're not separate from the people that you have a duty of care over. You know, you are a servant, so to speak. You know, if you choose to step into any role, whether it's a CEO or any manager of people, then you do have a responsibility, right? And that's also for yourself. Yeah.
You know, you said it perfectly, my friend. You know, it's our responsibility to the whole. And, you know, we come from older paradigms, and that's okay. The old paradigms, we have to go through natural stages of progression in consciousness. Simply put, you know, in this model, there's me centric, and we have to be able to get strong and feel confident and feel I'm able to create my own life, reality, my own freedom, my own income, my own. This is good. But of course, that has a shadow side. And if you keep going there, it can become egocentric. It can become, in its worst form, megalomania, where the voracious appetite for fulfilling one's desires in a disconnection with the whole. Okay, so that's the me-centric. And then there's businesses and individuals and leaders that are moving into or already have been established in the we-centric, which is, hey, one for all for one. Let's be here together. Let's recognize that we are one human family. We are one earth family. And so with that state of being, on that heart level of consciousness, how can we do business? How can we exchange? How can we run our operations with that level of being? It's actually quite easier. It's much easier. It's not difficult at all, because when your heart opens, you get the wisdom and the clarity of how to be with others. That's automatic, spontaneous, and natural. The other ways are all contrived. But then there's a third stage. There's me, we, and then there's the good of the all, the greater good. And I believe that we have to cultivate all three. We have to take care of the self, to take care of our circle of influence and support in our families and our companies, our teams. And we have to recognize that we are part of the greater whole. And that how does this operation here support the whole? And where doesn't it? And where it doesn't, let's shore it up. Let's redesign. Let's re-architecture. Let's take a look at our supply chains. Let's take a look at, so it's not just within the transformation happens. It starts here, and then it goes deeper into the granularity of how we actually run our businesses.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's interesting. We had recently we spoke to somebody, and she's an old family friend, and she said, "Well, can you explain to me what do you actually do?" And then I said, "We are helping leaders become more authentic, connect with themselves, and live and work from that space, connected with their wisdom, connected with their creativity, and connected with other people." And she said, but do they actually want to do that?
Yeah.
So there is, I mean, she's a lady of 70 something years of age. So I assume that in her mind, she has the old leaders with the fist, but there are so many still people that are working and operating under the same model. Do you see it changing? And why would people want to be more leading from the knowledge that you are sharing?
Well, again, you know, having compassion for that old school way of leadership, I see that it had validity, it has power, it comes from militaristic thinking. It comes from those times and eras that are still prevalent here on the earth, where militaristic command chains and all the things are valid and valuable if you need to conquer. But ultimately, business is not about conquering. Business is about the sharing of one's goods, services for the betterment of each other, to support life, to arise together ultimately. And so, there's an old joke, what's the difference between capitalism and communism or socialism? And the answer is in one system, man exploits man. And in the other system, it's the exact opposite. Man exploits man. So the way I've experienced it, it's not the doctrine, it's not the philosophies, it's who we are within. So if I within myself recognize that my leadership, bottom line is it's pragmatic. If you're an old school leader and you recognize this authoritarian way of leadership, it has validity, but you start to notice that modern people, millennials, teams nowadays, they're not just inspired by money. They're just not inspired by having a paycheck. They want to find a place where they can have deeper fulfillment, deeper joy, happiness, spending 40, 50 hours a week in work, 60 hours plus. People want to have a place where they can have affinity. They can have a sense that their creativity is being appreciated and can flourish and can have an expression. They have a desire and a calling that, if you're a leader nowadays, you know that people are coming and going. And unless you have an environment that is conducive to not just the growth of the business, but the growth of the individual and the growth of the individual, the group collective affinity, coherence, then you'll maintain and you'll keep the top performers in your company, because we are in the era now where people are wanting more of a holistic place of growth and contribution. Knowing this, it's not only makes sense, it's essential that we move our models towards this holism, this holistic form of running our operations. It's not only smart, wise, but it's also the most profitable bottom line impact you can make in your company.
Yeah. And you know what you touched on there before as well? It's the path of least resistance, right? It just feels right. And even for these old school leaders, I'd hazard a guess that, because they're human like us, right? When they experience working with other people, when they have a deep connection with other humans that they're, working with, whether it's their colleagues, with their friends, their family, it just feels right. That's what we're built for, right? And all we're pointing to for people that's listening is just that that's leadership as well. The more you're congruent with who you are, just being comfortable, I guess, in your own skin, the better leader you are, right?
Then you're trustable. Trust has an emanation. Mira, you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Trust, who you're being, has an emanation, has a transmission. The more you're authentically aligned to not outside values or mission statements and visions that are on a board or on a wall somewhere, the more they're sourced in your own self and your own being. And you're living in congruent, and you're aiming, no one's perfect, but we aim to be more and more everyday congruent with our deepest values and ethics and intention. Then that creates a transmission. It creates a vortex of power. It creates a presence that is felt and people are wanting to follow that depth, that gravitas of presence that's anchored in real depth of purpose and mission and activation of that. No one really listens to just loud mouths and loud energy. There's a deeper form of silent power that emerges, that calls, that beckons, that draws, that evokes the best out of our teams and their congruency and their loyalty, because we are now loyal to something that is deeper than just the surface of life.
What was coming to mind, the premise is different. When you said it earlier, the old leadership model was coming from the premise of conquer. We need to fight. But we don't. Corporations, businesses are not wars. And the premise, we need to understand that the premise there is different, and always has been different. We just haven't seen it until now. Yeah.
And this is the perfect time to hop on this amazing wave of running businesses, small, medium, large, mega corporation, in this new way of being. I believe that Mother Earth, Gaia, is already giving us this impression. And all we have to do is continue to follow and listen to this inner calling. One of the questions I usually have, or reticences that I feel with CEOs, leaders, are like, how can I bring this type of consciousness, this depth of feeling, this transcendent cultural values into my organization? Because I might feel it, but how will anyone else? What about them? And they might reject it. And I said, look, you have to have the courage as a leader to live the new paradigm. That will sometimes come with judgment. It might come with a sense of, what is that? What's going on there? Or it might come with some type of projection on you. But leaders, true, enlightened, transcendent leaders, they're less concerned about the projections upon them and having to steer that and having to manage their reputation of that. And they are more conscripted and loyal to the upliftment of their teams and their organizations from within. And so one of the things I share is through the practices and processes that I bring into organizations, there's no woo-woo. There's no having to believe in some type of esoteric knowledge or adopt some type of metaphysical stance. These are belief systems. That's not required. The practices and the process that I implement through our transcendent culture work and leadership work allow people to come to their own empowerment and self-recognition of their own power and wisdom. I take people through very specific processes. Mira, you mentioned going from the old paradigm to the new, right? So one of the simple exercises that I take teams through, let's say the marketing team I took through just a few weeks ago at a company. And there was all these type of interference patterns, challenges, bumping up, egos, but they produce incredible, work, incredible team. And yet, like in any team, there's always interference patterns and flow states and a bunch of everything, right? So I had a simple exercise. Imagine us three are in that team. The exercise is, I would say to you, Mira, a way that you lower and decrease my reputation and significance is, so when you don't call me in time, when I ask you for information about this marketing piece so that I can send to my client and you give it to me, 3-4 days late, it lowers my reputation and significance. Now, a way you can raise my reputation and significance is just know that when I'm asking you for something, it's not just for me. I have 5-6 other people relying on me getting that information, taking it, doing what I need to do with it to prepare it for them. So what would really help me is you being more timely. And then I would do the same with you, Peter. And then you would do the same with me, Amir. So everyone gets a chance to see how we lower and decrease each other's reputation significance, perhaps unconsciously, perhaps just through the busyness and the hecticness of business. And then we also give each other's invitation and instruction on how you can help build my own reputation significance. Now we go from a culture where everyone is trying to build their own reputation significance, which is the war style, the defeat others, step on each other's toes, suppress others to come up, to now a collaborative true. I'm here to raise your reputation, your significance. You're here to raise mine. And together the spiral goes upward rather than downward. That simple process changes the whole inner landscape of a company and teams.
It's beautiful. As I could just see how people typically, as we were talking in the beginning, people typically look at themselves and if the only thing they can see is a person in front of them, and they don't see the impact of their actions to the person behind that person and to how many people that one person is connected, impact them, and then their impact over larger scale. So just having the vision of a much bigger picture, and how do you really want to impact people? Like, really, is it that's not
Exactly.
difficult to see? Yeah.
But if you go out of your way to try to raise my reputation significance, if I'm a good person by nature, I'm wanting to reciprocate. By nature, you look at businesses in the old school, and everyone is trying to build their own reputation and significance, and that's how you grow through the corporate ladder, of course. But that energetic, that frequency, that state of being, that paradigm, it creates balancing forces. Anytime you're working on your own reputation, your own significance, sooner or later you'll shoot yourself in your own foot. No matter what, people will judge you, people will condemn you. You will do something that's silly and stupid, which makes you seem the opposite of what you value. This just happens when you're trying to build your own ego. That's what that is, ego building.
And I love that because it's when you're trying, it's not congruent, it's not authentic, right? And people spot it. And as you said, the younger generations, the millennials, the Generation X, they don't stand for that. They spot it really quickly. And they only really resonate, right, with people that actually they believe in, or people that, do what they said they're going to do, right? And I love what you were saying about, you took it away from being egocentric to being collaborative. And that's the essence of a high-performing team, right?
Absolutely. The term coherence is being shared a lot nowadays. To be coherent with each other. I like to use the term having affinity. It's even warmer. Ultimately, this might be a pie in the sky dream. I feel we can actually come to love with each other. My teams, the teams I happen to work with, we have a deep love and respect and joy for not just each other's lives within our business circle, but we have a deep care for how's your family, how's your wife, how's your children, how's your husband, how's your lover, how's life, how's your health, what do you do for fun? And this humanness is the essential healing solve, and I believe is the transformation at the heart of new economies. It's recognizing that we're not just sharing goods and services, that money in itself is, if you will, a flow, a feminine flow. Money is a way to purchase life experiences, not just things. And that life experiences, I believe, is the new paradigm rather than things. The joy of having, what does life have to offer?
No, I love that. And the thing is that any good leader, right, you do get to know your people genuinely. You do care about them. And the deeper you go with that, or at least that was my experience, I always got good leverage. Simply, it wasn't a strategy, right? I just actually give a shit. I actually got to know people at a deep level. And it was really good for me because when I was low or I felt pressure from the people above me, I knew the guys had my back when things got tricky because we knew each other at a human level, right? Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I'm sure that, I can think of many times when the teams I managed were not happy with the situation, but crucially, they didn't put it personally back on me. They were like, yeah, it wasn't great last week. However, we just did it because we know that you have our back. And that's a million miles away from the old paradigm of leadership, right? So I love that you mentioned that because I don't know why it's counterintuitive to some leaders. Just show up and get to know people at a deeper level than you did before. And you'd be surprised, with the results you get, right?
Years ago, I was must be in my early 20s, and I was waiting tables and delivering pizza on the weekends, making money to as a young fellow, right? And one of my spiritual teachers, I was working in a restaurant, and I got this job as a waiter, and sometimes I'd have good tips, sometimes really good, sometimes a little low, and I told him, how do you get good tips? Like sometimes it's like this. And he's told me, he says, Satyen, you have to subjugate your ego. Take your ego, put it underneath your client's ego, and then lift their ego up. Subjugate your ego energetically. Be under them and then lift them up. And just him sharing that vision and how to do that, I started doing that. I started when I'd come in, I'd have people coming into the restaurant, and I would just feel, just guess, even feel what is important to them. What do they like in life? And I would subjugate my ego, meaning I would surrender my sense of I'm Satyen Raja and just come to a place of service. I'm here to uplift you. And whatever I brought, I did that. And then my tips started going through the roof. And going through
I bet they did, yeah.
Right? And we call this care. In the old, it's care. And genuine care of each other is one of our transcendent cultural values. One of them is power, going from the ego's power to enlightened power. The next pillar I train organizations in is awakening the heart, which is the sense of oneness, unity, all for one, one for all that we've talked about. And that heart, that unity, this is the passion. This is what makes non-linear leaps happen in business. Linear business growth happens using traditional models. But when the team comes together in a higher level of synergy, a higher level of flow state, higher level of heart connectedness, non-linear jumps happen. Opportunities happen that come from the side that you attracted to you because you're in a new vibratory state that you weren't able to access at an earlier stage of your experience.
Yeah, I love that. You can have leaps just by flipping it from, the old model to people first, profit later, right?
Yes.
And the more you look at that, like you say, these jumps, if you try and measure it, it's like when, companies cap off creativity, they don't create the right conditions, right? So people are not feeling up for it. But as soon as you let go of the reins and stop trying to control it, right? That's when you get these massive shifts that you could never even strategize, right? Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
This is interesting. Peter just mentioned it now. This human need to control, insecurity, ego, but it is really interesting that as soon as you stop doing it, you release that something within. But we are still, even though I know that, even though I experienced it so many times, there's still times when I really, really hold on to it. I'm just curious, do you have anything to, say to that?
Control is a very foundational piece for me. I think that's the ultimate primal motive within our being, is to control our reality. It's the ultimate primal core. As cavemen, as humans right now, we're aiming to control reality so we can sustain life and eventually thrive, right? It's the core human animal instinct, is controlling reality. Now, in our philosophy here, transcendent leadership philosophy, there's two ways to control reality. One is through internal intention, meaning your current willpower. Using your willpower, how we all know how to control reality. We do this, we use our willpower, massive action equals massive results. This type of conscripting your willpower to attain strong things. Beautiful, powerful, valuable. Yet that also has a shadow side. It can burn us out. We can be excessively controlling.
Yeah.
And that control eventually puts us out of control. And it squeezes, My grandmother, years back, she said, Satyen, if you go to the ocean and you want to get some sand and bring it back to your car with an open hand, just pick up the sand. Now, if you grip the sand too tightly on the way back, it's going to pour out your fingers. That's excessive control. If I take the sand in my hand and I let my fingers too loose, the sand will fall through and I won't have the sand by the time I reach my destination. But if I hold with a nice palm, I don't let the fingers open, but I'm not squeezing too tight, and then I can find the perfect Tao, the perfect equilibrium, the perfect center of control, where it's not I've totally let go and I've fallen open and I just release and whatever, and I'm not clamping down to control reality to conform to me. It's a beautiful sing-song dance. And that is the art. That's finding how can I awaken the masculine and feminine energies within me and learn to utilize them in the most appropriate way at the right time.
Yes, as you said, it's within us, and that's why it's finding the balance. You cannot have one or the other because it's you losing, and it's not possible probably.
I have always found one of the main things that I train business leaders in is one of the first steps is helping them loosen the grip of excessive control. The moment you lose and relax the grip of excessive control, a force of energy comes to you, prana, chi, life force, awakening starts to happen. And it requires a trust, a faith, an experience in something bigger. But what's beautiful about letting go of the grip of control is that you actually go to a meta level of direction. You're able to steer reality not from willpower, but from another force that kicks in, a universal coordination force. Call it the Great Spirit, call it the universal. Another term for this, external intention, where you're letting go of the grip of control, but your soul and mind is very clear of what it wishes to generate and create. And now, rather than your willpower affecting that, now it becomes your transmission attracts the very thing that you wanted. It's a beautiful thing to experience. Sometimes it's hard to believe. It may seem, oh, how can this be? But once it becomes a way of life and a habit, you go, my goodness, there's far more reality creation from loosening the grip of control than excessively tightening it.
Yeah.
No, I love that, because when you let go of the reins, it's so freeing, right? And that you're kind of shocked by it. And then once you get comfortable, it's like, wow, it's so much more powerful. We all slip back, right? But yeah, it's wonderful to hear for leaders that the less we control people and the more we just allow, and trust our people. And also, we touched on it before, but you must let people grow, right? And let them explore things for themselves and let them experience, the role and fail and whatever else. As long as you're there to, as you said before, you have to find a balance. And I love that you said about the art, because that's how I see leadership, that it is an art form. It's for me, it's a deeply creative thing. I loved being a leader. I'm not saying it wasn't challenging, of course, but what I loved about it is it was always, always different every day. You had to use all of your creativity to be able to guide your people at the same time as looking at the company strategy and, ticking the boxes in the corporate world. But the more I didn't try to control people, and actually I didn't really look at the numbers, if I'm honest, although I didn't tell my bosses at the time, I just focused my energy on my people. And guess what happened? That's when the results came in. And as you said, the results couldn't be measured. I couldn't even envisage if I tried to control that before the year, started. And when we all like to start in January, a fresh year, and start to plan and strategize. If I tried to plot that, there's no way I would have got there, right? Yeah. And I think that's good to know, isn't it? That we don't have to have all of the pieces at the jigsaw, right?
That all the pieces are already there within our team and us. And it's the trust and the faith and the fanning of that empowerment to them, not controlling them, helping them control their reality. When we help them control their reality, let me help you control your reality and your position, rather than me control you. When you help them control their reality, boom, the reality gets controlled, but in a whole other beautiful way.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I'm curious. I was thinking, we didn't ask this on the beginning, but it keeps on coming back. How did you start working with leaders? How did you learn what you know?
I started very early in martial arts. And
that was
profound teachers and mentors who really taught me the ways of Taoism, the ways of Eastern philosophy. They taught me not just the yang side, but the yin side of martial arts. And they were wonderful demonstrations of integrity and love and care in action, as well as they showed me that one can be a warrior and one can be a sage. One can be strong and soft. And so that was my first imprint, which I'm very blessed and forever grateful for. And I eventually went on to own my own martial arts schools, and I've been an entrepreneur for many, many years now, 30 plus 35 years. And through those times, I've had the blessing, continuous blessing, of being guided and mentored by many great leaders. And I like to just consider myself a student, an everlasting student. I think that's my claim to fame, is I love learning and experiencing and going right to the feet of leaders who are demonstrating the life I wish to live. And I believe that when we are around them, we not only receive their knowledge, their insight, but we receive the transmission of their being, which is you can't find in any book. You can only receive at a soul level.
Yeah, I love what you said there, because what we were saying before, right? It's that unspoken energy that if you're a great leader, people just want to spend time with you, right? And that's the most powerful thing. It's not even in your words. It's just how you show up, right?
Much of my work in leadership at the early stages is the development of presence, claim, and penetration. And presence for me is the sense of that feeling that someone is fully right there. All of them is right there with you. And when someone has strong presence, it's very nourishing to the soul. And people enjoy and wish to be, and teammates wish to learn from and be guided by those which have steady presence. Presence is not enough. You can have great presence, but you might be wobbling around and loose. A claim is, what do you stand for? We can call it vision, mission, but what do you stand for? Not what are the values on the wall, what do you value in the way you live? And that's your claim. Claim is the embodiment of your purpose. And when a leader is worked on and continues to galvanize and cultivate and anchor what their claim is, their presence becomes stronger, their reputation and impact becomes wider. So presence and claim. Penetration means to enter the world with your know-how. It's not sitting back in the witness position. It's saying, yes, what is here is meant to enter the world. Service, business, products, whatever you're offering, you're bringing it into the world. You're not letting it sit on the shelf. So when we have presence, claim, and that penetrative quality, what happens is our leadership really magnifies profoundly. But now it needs to be balanced with the feminine side. That's more the masculine energetics. The feminine energetics of flow are invitation, surrender, and free expression. So we might have presence, and we're there, but we also need to learn how to invite people, to learn how to not tell them what to do, but invite them into a new path, new direction. So cultivating the capacity to invite is really a continuous art to develop. Surrender. Surrender is learning when to let go, when to let things be, when to loosen the grip of control, when to shut the business off, when to shut the phone off, when to now say, that day is complete, that hat of business is done, I surrender that. I can't do anything more. Life, Great Spirit, it's in your hands. Now I'm going to meet my family. I'm going to wear my father, my lover, my husband hat, and I'm going to now come and give the fullness of there. So surrendering one thing so that you can be fully present. So surrender, and then that's strengthened also by free expression, as you were sharing, Peter, the authentic expression of who we actually are. Expressing when we're sad, we let people know. When we have upset within, we're not projecting or making others wrong. We're just sharing the truth of our real expression. This is very valid and very appreciated by our teammates when they feel the realness, whether we're in happiness and ecstasy or we've hit a tough, hard day, the vulnerability to express our truth and still hold our leadership anchor is uplifting and begets trust, because we're humans. So these dynamics, presence, claim, penetration, invitation, surrender, and expression, when they're dialed in and cultivated and brought into awakening within ourselves, we become really world-class leaders, like Arna.
Interesting what you said for this expression of whatever is, that it's I don't know much about that, the energy side of things. I did learn a little bit, but not as much. That it's and it's a feminine part, isn't it? And I've noticed it is much easier for women to express themselves and be authentic. Yeah.
Well, women nowadays, because of the subjugation of women for thousands of years, now wonderfully we have society now in the West that is embracing and honoring, and women are coming up. Still not at the top yet, but are coming up over the next 50 years. You're all going to be leading the world. And I'm happy. And I believe more of that should be happening for sure, because the feminine has so much inherent body wisdom and already an inherent interconnectedness, just at a core level of being, is what I feel. And by feminine, I'm meaning not men, women. I'm meaning the feminine in all of us, regardless of body, regardless of sexual orientation, just that energetic domain within us. We have masculine and feminine. But I feel women nowadays are becoming empowered more by learning to cultivate presence, claim, and penetration in the world, which is the edge, which is the next realm to go to the next level. And us men, for us to go into the next degree of depth of learning, we need to cultivate more invitation, surrender, and genuine expression. And this makes us more whole and more empowered in a very, very beautiful way. That we need a holistic form of leadership now. And I'm so glad you're supporting that. It's the wave of now, not the future.
Yeah,
it's definitely now. It's not something that we need to wait for, right?
No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't.
And what I wanted to ask you as well, Satyen, is we were having a little look at some of your current activities, and there's a new initiative that you're involved in.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
One of the organizations I've been invited to is an organization called Undercurrent. And you can check out Undercurrent.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. I looked at the website and it looked really, well, we definitely resonated with that because, again, obviously you can explain it a bit more, but what piqued our interest is just looking at who was involved. And that's the next level, to move away from the current paradigm of trying to create profitable companies, right? Versus people first, as we said before, right?
I'm going to invite anyone in business, medium, large size business, to come and visit our website there. It's undercurrent.com. And it's a superstar team, a rock star dream team of very empowered business leaders, if you will, who are experts in sustainable and regenerative business practices, principles, wisdoms, implementations. And so we know now that a sustainable, regenerative future in business it's not the way to go, it's the necessity of the present time. It's the necessity of all time. And sometimes we have to go from our ignorance of the past to come to this simple revelation that we are symbiotically all related. But our organization here is really here to impact companies to have it so from top to bottom, inside out, that they're forces of good for the greater whole, while magnifying their capitalistic growth, while they're magnifying their profits, but at the same time they're having organizations that are growing from within, creating wonderful company cultures that are inspiring, that are cohesive, that are heartwarming, that are evolutionary. And we know now, based on the principles that we've already brought into so many companies already, that the thirst and the longing and the reality is here now. So we're here to help usher that and speed that implementation of business that's good for the greater whole.
Yeah, it isn't what I assume lots of old not old leaders, but people that come from the old paradigm of leadership think that if they become softer, if they implement all this new stuff that we are talking about, I mean, not new, but new for them probably, that they will lose money, that they will lose profit, that they will not grow as fast. But actually the opposite is true.
It is statistically absolutely proven over and over. And we have all the facts and the data. There's just tremendous knowledge and insight on these transcendent cultural values and leadership values and principles are really creating breakthroughs in profit. Not just a little increase. They're creating breakthroughs in profit, breakthroughs in success, and breakthroughs in reputation and wider impact. And it is the wave of the present, as I was sharing. And so we all must hop on board. We really don't have another choice. We do,
Yeah.
but we won't be around to enjoy that choice.
No, I totally agree. And it's not, the other way is just not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll definitely share that link as well. So if people want to get in contact with you, where's the best place then? That website or how?
Yes. So my personal or our website is warriorsage.com, WARRIORSAGE.com. And as a gift, what I've done is I've created 3 free trainings that anyone can do at home with their friends, their family, their colleagues, their teams. And when you go to warriorsage.com and you click under trainings, I've created an abundance activation, a relationship activation, and a power activation, which are 3 one-day workshops. They're totally free. There's nothing to buy. There's no upsells. This is all in the spirit of communities arising together, and it supports people to learn processes, methods that transform the limited states very rapidly. So please enjoy those, and we'd love to hear from you, those of you who experience that.
Sounds great.
Perfect,
Thank you.
you.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. We could go on for much longer on this subject because I'm guessing with people listening, we're definitely passionate about this, and it sounds like you are too in terms of leadership and sustainability and the like. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for being our guest.
You're and thank you for the good work you're doing in the world. I feel your hearts, your character, your genuineness, and your power. And I commend you, salute you. And it's good to have a brother and sister on the other side of the world helping us all arise together. An honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well.
Thank you for listening to the Mind Takeaway podcast. Please, please, please share this podcast with your friends. And if you haven't already, press the subscribe button. And thanks again for listening.